Well, as I stated yesterday, we'll be looking at some of the Psalms as we examine David's life from 1st and 2nd Samuel. And today we look at Psalm 56, Psalm 120, Psalm 140, 141, and 142. And I want to focus today on Psalm 142. Now, the context for Psalm 142 is most likely 1 Samuel 22 and verse 1, when he is in the cave of Adullam. And remember, if this is the case, then he is on the run for his life. Saul is seeking to kill him. And so let me read to you Psalm 142 today. A maskil of David when he was in the cave, a prayer. I cry aloud to the Lord. I plead aloud to the Lord for mercy. I pour out my complaint before him. I reveal my trouble to him. Although my spirit is weak within me, you know my way. Along this path I travel, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, no one stands up for me. There is no refuge for me. No one cares about me. I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my shelter, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am weak. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Free me from prison so that I can praise your name. The righteous will gather around me because you deal generously with me. Here, what we see in looking at Psalm 142 is that David is troubled. If it's in the context of 1 Samuel 22, then it's because Saul is chasing him to kill him. And he brings his issue to God because he trusts in him and no one else. He says, I cried to the Lord, not to any other God or any other person, but he brings his issue to the Lord. He brings that issue to him, and in verse 2, he pours it out before the Lord. He pours out his complaint, meaning his problem, and talking about those that are causing him problems. He pours it out before the Lord. Here in verse 3, we see where he says, although my spirit is weak within me, you know the way. Along the path I travel, they have hidden a trap for me. We see here that he's overwhelmed, that he is weak. This is the same man that just a few chapters ago took up armor against Goliath with nothing more than a sling and stones. But now he finds himself to be overwhelmed and weak. He takes comfort in the fact that God knows all of this. He knew what was going to happen in David's life. There's nothing hidden. There's no surprise. And he takes comfort in that. He feels here in verse 4, he feels alone and abandoned. He says, look to the right and see. No one stands up for me. There's no refuge for me. No one cares about me. I tell you, for myself, more times than not, I've felt like that than any other time. And I understand David's feeling here. He's alone. He's in the cave. He feels that everyone has abandoned him. But we see here in verse 5 that God has not abandoned him. He cries out to the Lord because God has not abandoned him. He pleads to the Lord in verse 6 for God to rescue him. And in verse 7, he ends it. He said, free me from this prison, talking about from all of the problems that he has, so that then he can go and tell others what God has done for him, that he can praise him through his testimony. Are you overwhelmed? Go to God. Do you feel alone and abandoned? The feelings that we have often lie to us. And no, he never leaves us and forsakes us. Oftentimes we can feel overwhelmed and alone, but God is there. Join me again next time as we continue looking at the life of David.